Isn't it time you got to know your technology leaders? You're listening to Off the Record with Health Tech, and I'm your host, Kelly Yoakum. So grab your coffee or cocktail and join us for our casual yet intimate and thought-provoking expose on our top council members, ambassadors, technology innovators, and thought leaders. Today, I am very pleased to welcome an exciting guest, Mr. Andrew Hicks, Director of Healthcare and Life Sciences Practice for Coalfire. Welcome, Andrew.
Hi, good afternoon.
Well, we would like to start off by getting to know a little bit about who you are and your personal story.
Sure. So you obviously know my name already, but my story is more or less I came out of college, as long as it goes, that seems, and really didn't know where I wanted to where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do, and ended up kind of falling into just IT audit as a good way just to understand a lot about the company I worked for, an oil company. Just not a lot of depth behind that. So that kind of parlayed over into IT security and into, compliance and found myself working for a air ambulance company. And that kind of introduced me to healthcare and HIPAA and high tech and omnibus and high trust and all these great regulations that we have to work with. So that's kind of where I started from and how I got over to Coalfire now.
Excellent. So, there's been a bit of buzz in the news about how several large covered entities, United Health, Humana, Anthem, and Highmark, to name a few, are now requiring their business associates to become high trust certified by June of 2017 to validate the HIPAA compliance. What do you know about this, and how are you helping organizations meet this deadline?
So we've definitely seen the high trust press releases. We've heard rumors that the letters are starting to go out, or they've a big chunk of them have already gone out already. The thing I find really exciting about it is this has been an industry that has never really been regulated. There are requirements. Don't mistake me on that, but there are requirements. But there's not really a mandate to be compliant or really proactive assessments to ensure that, like we have over in the PCI and the retail space. So for the first time, we're actually seeing the industry kind of self-regulate itself through this mandate high trust certification process. So right off the bat, that increases awareness around not only checking the box with compliance, but companies are going to be forced to take their security programs to the next level because high trust is not an easy assessment process. The rigor and the level of the control requirements is much more superior to any kind of HIPAA assessment that they've ever encountered before. So it's really good. Us as end consumers, we have the benefit of knowing that these companies, as they go through the certification process, ultimately they're going to be putting controls in place to help safeguard our data, which is the reason we have so many breaches that we've heard about earlier this year.
Yeah, well, we've heard that the high trust certification process is quite complex and it can be confusing for healthcare organizations. So how do they get started and keep from getting overwhelmed?
I would say starting with just reading. Read about high trust, read about the history of the organization. We see a lot of companies, regardless whether they're assessor firms or just firms that want to be more knowledgeable about the process, they will send individuals down to high trust training. So that's a really good avenue to get, understand the process, understand, what the high trust certification entails. So that's a really good avenue. The other thing too, when you go through the process, if you receive your letter or if you're just doing it because you think it's the right framework to follow, engage various assessor firms and kind of understand what they can offer. Maybe you're short on resources and you can leverage somebody that's done these before and really understand the process that way. There are things like self-assessments where assessors can come in and help out with that before you even get through the certification process or even attempt that certification process. So in this case, kind of knowing what you're in for, knowing what the pitfalls could be, and kind of working through those and having a strong plan of attack to get you through the process is monumental. And then obviously having senior management support and buy-in is also good as well.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the pitfalls of the high trust process. And do you have any case examples you can share?
Sure. So I would say that the biggest pitfall right out of the chute is for customers that come to us or any assessor and whether they're responding to a letter or just something they want to do, ultimately they want to achieve high trust certification. And so they may, more or less get the cart ahead of the horse, want to go and engage in the process, only to find out that they have no policies and procedures in place. They have no idea where their data actually exists. They haven't fully scoped the environment out. Those are things that are absolutely elementary to the process. They're what we call our phase one assessment, our pre-assessment. Without those types of things in place, organizations are going to fall flat really quickly in the process. So we've kind of developed a four-phase approach to getting organizations through the high trust certification process. And I can't reveal names, but a particular client has gone through this process, and what it allows them to do is identify those pitfalls right as they occur. So we have checkpoints built in through the process where if you don't have policies and procedures in place, you're not going to move from phase one to phase two. And if you don't have solid control descriptions in place, you don't have your controls defined and implemented, you won't go from phase two to phase three. So there are pitfalls in the process, and just having an assessor organization that understands the process from beginning to end and gives you the ability to engage them as a advisor on the front end and as an assessor on the back end, that is really imperative as you go through a self-assessment and then through the certification process.
Mm-hmm. Well, through our own health tech discussions with our executives in the healthcare arena, as well as the OCR, said that healthcare organizations are really not doing thorough risk assessments, if at all. So, a lot of people are really wondering why this is happening and what can be done about it.
So it's no secret the OCR has been commonly on the forefront of pushing out guidance, tools in some cases about how to overcome this risk analysis requirement. And I can tell you from all the assessments that we've done, we're inside of very small business associates all the way up to the massive multi-network hospital systems that are covered entities. And by and large, of all the requirements, the risk analysis requirement is the one that is the most misunderstood. And so many organizations that we see, they look at that as a check in a box. They turn the HIPAA security rule around into vulnerability statements and then try to do some kind of an assessment against those vulnerabilities to see where they are, and ultimately they're just looking to check the box. Truth be told, what we really, really push organizations to is doing a comprehensive assessment. HIPAA says, per the requirement that organizations must do an accurate and thorough assessment of the threats and the vulnerabilities to their protected health information. And comprehensive there is really critical. Organizations need to understand what their threats are, what threat actors exist, what threat vectors they use to try to circumvent the vulnerabilities that are present, and then understanding the impact and the likelihood if those vulnerabilities are exploited. So if a comprehensive assessment is done, organizations will uncover many, many, many more risks than just a compliance-driven risk assessment.
Mm-hmm. Well, in our own organization, we started talking to the council several years ago about doing risk assessments, and it wasn't really on their radar at all as a priority. We saw some increase in 2014, but it seems that it's been an explosive topic in 2015, which is great because it's going to prevent a lot of these vulnerabilities. But have you seen an increase in this focus, importance, and attention on doing this proper assessment?
I want to say the bar has been raised a little bit. We saw the NIST cybersecurity protocol that came out, so that's good awareness there. We've actually stood up our own cybersecurity risk management practice at Coalfire because we feel like there's much more value to be added than just looking at a compliance-driven framework and driving out risk from that, as opposed to looking at the organization as a whole, looking at financial risk and business risk. And there's so many other risks than just IT related. Obviously, those are monumental, big risks there. But we're looking at other avenues to identify those risks and, most importantly, understanding what controls can be put in place to mitigate those risks from even taking place.
Okay, good. Well, medical devices are getting a lot of attention in the media. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah, medical devices. So one thing that's concerning to me is when we do a lot of assessments for covered entities where they have medical devices, One thing that is very concerning there is that they don't include medical devices in their risk assessments, speaking of them. If they do them at all, they're not including medical devices. And from a compliance perspective, they don't include those medical devices to their compliance assessment. They don't understand or evaluate the controls or the weaknesses in controls that those medical devices present to their organizations. So medical devices, many of them are highly mobile. They're on carts or on wheels or highly portable. A lot of them store massive amounts of data. So think of like sleep apnea machines where patient information is constantly recorded over and over on these hard drives, and it's retained and archived on those for long periods of time. So those are the types of things. And then many of them are also obviously networked. They're vulnerable to any kind of network-based attack. So for those reasons, we look for things like encryption and strong authentication procedures and access control and the things that we typically look for in our EPHI systems, our databases and web apps and servers. But now we need to look more at the medical devices to make sure those support these advanced controls.
With many of the recent healthcare data breaches being caused by advanced threats and hacking, what can healthcare organizations do to shore up their systems?
So one of the things I kind of mentioned about was taking their compliance program to the next level. We've got to stop chasing compliance and really hone in on security. So, compliance is a subset of security, and you'll get there by being more secure or more security focused. But a lot of the requirements, they don't mandate or require penetration testing, vulnerability assessments, application validation, social engineering. Those are things that are common attack vectors that, one of those was the case in Anthem. We've seen the lost hard drive, the lost laptops. We've seen that stuff over and over and over again. And just doing some basic measures like pen testing and vuln scans will help shore up the perimeter of the environment. And then doing things like social engineering will make sure that data can't be leaked from the inside out. Those are all really good things. Training obviously is critical, and knowing just that you have strong policies and procedures in place are helpful as well.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I've really enjoyed learning more about Coalfire's expertise. And to learn more about Coalfire as a high-trust assessor firm, go to coalfire.com. For more information on health tech and the upcoming H-Track Council Summit, November 15th through 17th at the Homestead Resort in Virginia, go to htrac.org. Thank you again, Andrew. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Thanks again for tuning in. Please join us for our next council meeting and upcoming podcasts. Go to htrac.org. Again, I'm your host, Kelly Yoakum, and I look forward to your topic ideas, feedback, and suggested podcast participants. So please feel free to reach out to me at kelly@htrac.org.